Welcome to Essential Dynamics. I'm your host, Eric Hudson. We've been developing essential dynamics to help us make sense of complex situations, how to run our businesses better and our lives and organizations. And I'm really thrilled to have Tal Pizzey with me today. Tal, welcome to Essential Dynamics.
Thank you. Pleased to be with you.
I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been, I think, months that I've been chasing you. And as you've been setting up your organization for the future, I've kind of watched a little bit of what you've done lately, but I don't know your story, and I'm really looking forward to getting to understand a little bit about the journey that your organizations have taken and you've taken, and then we're going to look and see what kind of lessons we can learn from that apply to the things we talk about, essential dynamics. So maybe first you could just introduce Acuren, talk about your role, and then maybe we'll ask some questions about the interesting history that you've been involved in.
Sure. All right. The company is Acuren Corporation. We do have several other companies, but really that's the primary brand. And for the most part, if we don't brand it Acuren within a few years of an acquisition, there's a strategic reason to, but I would suggest probably 90% of our revenue comes through Acuren. The business has three service lines: non-destructive testing, which is something most people don't know what that means. I think there's a really nice analogy with the medical industry. If you have a sore arm and you go see the doctor, he doesn't cut it off to find out what's wrong. He might use X-ray or ultrasound or visual, and we do the same thing on industrial assets like vessels, tanks, pipes, and we use non-destructive methods like X-ray, ultrasonics, magnetic methods, other visual and technologies to assess the condition of these assets, because they degrade over time with corrosion, erosion, and heat degradation. So we have inspectors in the field looking for flaws and helping customers prevent catastrophic events. And the second service line we have is engineering failure analysis. And that is a little bit more like the pathologist, where people send in broken parts and shrapnel, and anything from toilet tanks and pipes to roller coasters comes to our labs, and we determine what went wrong and assess whether it was a manufacturing defect or in-service flaw or designed poorly. And then the third sort of leg to our three service line stool is access solutions. And this is where we found in the inspection work we do that our customers often spend more money scaffolding for us to get access than they do on the inspection. And so in 2010, we acquired a company that had what's sort of innovative to North America is rope access. So we have more than 1,000 guys working, men and women working off of ropes, doing inspections and other trades related work. So those are our three service lines. The company operates from 130 offices across North America and a couple in the UK, about 6,000 employees and 1.1 billion revenue. So that's kind of a quick overview of what we do and where we're at.
And so you're based here in Edmonton. You're in Edmonton. Well, pardon me, Sherwood Park guy.
Yeah,
that's important if you're in Edmonton and not anywhere else.
Right.
And is the Acuren headquartered in Edmonton then?
No, our global headquarters are in Houston. I have an apartment there and spend close to half my time there. But Edmonton is, pretty sizable and certainly head office for the Canadian business. So we have two main centers, Houston and Edmonton, but Houston is our corporate headquarters.
That's corporate headquarters. Okay. So maybe you first walk through how Acuren got to be a $1.1 billion company, because it didn't start out that way. And what happened in the industry, and what were some of the decisions that were made to grow that big?
Okay, sure. So I guess there's two main routes. I mean, in my time with the company, we've acquired 58 companies, but most of those are relatively small. But in our history, there's sort of two main routes. So I'll start in Canada, which is where my roots come from. The company, I joined a company called Hanson Materials Engineering. We can probably get into more details on my history, but that company became CanSpec in 1991. And then in 1997, we joined a US company that was of the same size that we were in Canada. Both companies were 30 or 40 million revenue at the time. And so that's a quick version of the Canadian trunk. And then in the US side, the company started in, as Longview Inspection. It was in Longview, Texas. And a guy by the name of Peter Scannell with an investment group acquired a very small company, about 3 million revenue in 1991. And that was really the start of the company at that point. And they had a real growth mindset from day one, the idea of doubling the business every 5 years with a combination of free cash flow from the business being used to buy companies, but also a real organic growth strategy. Over time, organic growth has been about 2/3 of our growth, with acquisition being 1/3. And so that company, Longview Inspection, as I said, in 97, was the same size as us in Canada. The two companies merged, doubled in size overnight, and continued that growth journey through really to a sale to a private equity firm in 2019, American Securities. And then at that point, I became CEO. Prior to that, I was Chief Operating Officer of Canada for about 20 years. And then we sold again, as private equity companies do, and we're now a public company. So that's the quick version of how we got to where we are. It's really sort of phenomenal growth over a 30-year period. It's kind of sensitive to the starting point, but it's pretty consistent 10 to 15% CAGR over 30 years that got us to where we're at today. And those are the two companies that merged. And we maintained the CanSpec Longview name for a period of time, even though we were together. And in 2005, we just created the name Acuren. Got some marketing guys and found some different words with different meanings. Accurate engineering is somewhat behind the two names, and we made up the name.
Well, that's awesome. So 2/3 organic growth, and then 1/3 also by bringing companies in through acquisition.
Right.
What drove the growth? There was obviously a growth mindset. There was a company coming in and saying, we can do this bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
What other factors would allow for that growth to happen?
Yeah, I mean, wanting to grow and growing are clearly two different things, but a big part of it is having a plan and wanting to grow, sort of a real desire to deal with that kind of disruption that comes from growth. So first of all, we certainly had aggressive goals. I think we benefited from being in a pretty good industry. I think the tailwinds to our industry are aging assets. You hear a lot about infrastructure in North America, and every nuclear plant, refinery, power plant, chemical plant, these things are built for 25-year life, and they're probably more than 50 years old on average. Those CEOs don't keep their job by replacing assets all the time. They want them to extend the life, and we're the kind of company that helps them extend the life of those assets. So, there's some good tailwinds. Maybe over time, the industry has grown about 4%, and some of that is just price and wage increase, and some of that is more hours from aging assets. And then as a company, we just try to make strategic acquisitions that we can grow from new service line. We, being the biggest company now, we certainly have something to offer around technology and size and scale. And so we like to, we strive to take some market share and a little bit of share of wallet by offering new services like the rope access we introduced has been fast growing for a while now.
That's very interesting. So one question I have in all this growth, how important was proprietary technology, doing stuff that others can't do?
Um, you know, it's you certainly want to say it's a lot, but the reality is it's not as much as you might think. We do not engage in a lot of R&D activities. We have a little bit. We generally rely on suppliers of technology and
Mhm.
equipment, and we certainly partner with them. And we might have a little bit more in the camp of applications engineering, where we take great technology and apply it to our customers' problems. And so we provide solutions that might use that equipment in a bit of a unique way. But for the most part, our reputation, our safety performance, our quality, our reputation, and our breadth of technology offering and size and scale is what helps us sell new customers and retain existing customers.
I think we'll get into it a little bit in our next conversation, but I've always been very interested in this idea that good management is more important than a lot of other things.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. We consider ourselves to be strong operators, sort of operations excellence, and focusing on pennies. I'd say
Mhm.
we throw nickels around like manhole covers. So we're pretty frugal and cost conscious and make good investment decisions, but also manage really tight. We're most of our revenue is labor by the hour, so we need to pay appropriately and bill appropriately and run at very high utilization.
That's great. So I do want to talk more about that, but let's go to you for maybe the next few minutes here.
Sure.
You're the CEO of $1 billion corporation,
Mm-hmm.
and you graduated from university with an engineering degree. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Did you have plans to be running a major company at some point when you finished school?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't when I was younger, but fairly soon it seemed like management path was what interested me most, and opportunities came as we grew, and I grew with the company. But as you say, I did. You know, I as a high school student, I had stronger math science grades than social English grades, and I felt engineering was kind of the right path for me. My math 31 mark was my best mark, and so I entered engineering not knowing what really engineering is. And the first year at University of Alberta, engineering is general. There's no specialization yet, and one of the things you do is you learn about the disciplines of engineering in your first year. But I had the opportunity, I took a job, a summer job in grade 11 doing heat treating. My now wife, but girlfriend at the time's mother was a payroll clerk for Hanson Materials Engineering. And when I got a $6 an hour job doing heat treating. So that was kind of interesting, but not overly interesting. And then the next summer I came back and was a helper doing non-destructive testing, and that was more interesting. And then I registered in civil engineering after first year, but my summer job that year got even more interesting. And so after returning to school, it took me a few weeks to switch, but I switched from civil to metallurgical engineering, which most people never hear about. There was, I think, 8 people in my class, and there's a lot of chemical engineering and mining engineering and petroleum engineering classes, but as you in years 3 and 4, it's all metallurgy, and it was pretty interesting.
So if I have it right then, because you've given me the pedigree of Acuren,
Yeah.
you started in grade 11 at the company you're president of now.
Yeah, that's right. It was. I've had 5 owners, but I haven't changed jobs.
You haven't changed jobs, still have the same employee number that you did
That's
when
right.
you were making $6 an hour.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a fantastic story. What for you personally? What were some of the hardest things to learn when you switched from engineering to being a professional manager?
Yeah, it was a long journey. I mean, I started, well, first of all, from 81 to 87, I was working summers and weekends, started a family fairly early, and money was helpful in my career. So I went co-op, or in my school life, I went co-op engineering. So you take 5 years for a 4-year degree plus the 2 summers before. By the time I graduated in 87, I had worked 36 months kind of in technical roles, everything from machine shop machinist to testing in the field to heat treating. And and so that was kind of a valuable background for me. When I graduated, I did failure investigation for about 3 years. That was super interesting, learning about all kinds of things. And they asked me to manage small group of visual inspectors, like 6 people, I believe. And these visual inspectors were doing jobs in Japan, overseas. If Shell was buying a pipeline and manufacturing in Japan, they would hire us to go over there and sort of oversee the quality. So that was kind of my first management opportunity. I was a young guy and had some 50-year-old visual inspectors I was managing, and it was kind of fun and interesting. And then, they asked me to manage a small department and develop some technology, automated ultrasonics for pipeline weld inspection. So that was all pretty interesting. I went back to school on weekends and in a MBA program. It was at University of Calgary, but it was really a joint program between U of A and U of C. So I did a 2-year MBA program, 20 courses, and I think that was really what launched me into a better spot, helping understand financial statements better, in more detail, and some of the tools to help an engineer be more bold in decision making. And so that sort of launched me into bigger and bigger roles in management. But I had already been on a little bit of a path with some smaller departments, and went from managing those visual guys to the Edmonton NDT department, to the Edmonton office, to the Prairies region, to the country, and then the next level. So
Yeah.
a lot of years in junior management roles.
So I took a different route, but a number of years out of university, I joined a technical company as the chief financial officer, and I was the only sort of management person there that wasn't an engineer or a scientist.
Right.
And it took me a long time to kind of learn engineering mindset, and then I feel like I kind of missed out on something, because there's this fantastic, I think, solid approach that engineers of all disciplines have, that's useful in management. Can you talk about that at all? Because you've kind of done both.
Sure. There's no question that engineering, first of all, it was challenging. I wasn't super strong academically. I sort of kind of wanted to play basketball at University of Alberta, and the coach told me, he said, there's 3 things in life. There's difficult school, there's basketball, and there's women. You can have 2 of the 3. So I chose my girlfriend and my engineering. My buddy went the other way and played basketball. But engineering was tough. We're taking 5 to 7 courses a term. It was a full load. First and second year were particularly hard. But when I graduated, you think back on, you certainly do not learn the things you need to do in your job. Like, there's so much new stuff to learn to actually do your job. But what I really learned in engineering is how to figure stuff out. And I felt like even though I didn't have the internet at the time to, the way it is now with Google and ChatGPT, I look at my son who could build anything, just pull up a YouTube video and build it. I didn't have that, but I learned how to figure things out. And I think that was a really important structure to the engineering program. And it's not different from metallurgy to mechanical to other forms of engineering. It's you're given a basis to think critically and analytically and to solve problems. And that problem solving mindset, I think, has been super helpful in management.
And what did your business education add to that?
I think it rounded out rough edges a little bit. It helped with understanding business financial statements, what measures of success there are. And it gave me more confidence to make decisions that would be helpful to the business.
So if you think about the path that Acuren has been on, were there any critical decision points that you were involved in that, I mean, obviously turned out well, but you weren't sure at the time?
Yeah, I'm sure there's many. As you say that, the biggest one that stuck out is, we bought this rope access company, and it seemed like a high risk business compared to the things we do. They were, guys hanging from ropes in industrial settings. They were a very different culture. We have an engineering mindset in our company. Technicians are sort of black and white thinkers, and things are, you follow the rules, and things are pass fail, and you work safe. This company owned a helicopter. They had guys doing crazy things. They were motorcycle racers and high risk sort of personal lives. And we thought, this company, it doesn't necessarily fit our culture, but there was a lot to like about it. And usually, number one rule of buying companies is it's going to fit in your culture. But in this case, I think it morphed into a great business, and some of the benefits and their culture helped our culture in a lot of ways. And it's been an incredible winner for us. They had 25 million revenue in 2010 when we bought them, and now we're about 220 million US revenue in that business.
In that business of people hanging from ropes.
Yep, every day.
Every day, safely.
Doing incredibly cool stuff. Like you can sit in a industrial setting and look up and see nothing but blue sky other than a pipe rack. And we find a way, like Spider-Man, to run a tension line from there to over there and rappel down and do the inspection and get out of the way and save the customer boatloads on building scaffolding. The job is done faster, quicker, better,
safer.
Cheaper.
Wow.
Yeah, everything.
So Tal, as we wrap up this section, and then there's a bunch of stuff I want to ask you when we get back together again. Maybe you could just reiterate for us how important the work you do is to the lives of ordinary people.
Sure. So on the non-destructive testing side, we find things before they break and blow up and fail. So when a pipeline leaks in a river, when a roller coaster comes off the track, when a refinery blows up, it's because some component in that facility had not been inspected and failed for some reason. And we prevent those failures every day. We have 6,000 people out working, and they are looking for flaws that might lead to failure. So the work we do is important. It's important we do it right and we do it well. And when things do fail, our engineering labs are there to help our customers understand how and why it failed and help prevent it from failing again.
And is that purpose? Does that mean something to everyone who works at Acuren?
It certainly does. I think people feel a sense of pride and know that the work they do has purpose. I read a book years ago, 3 Signs of a Miserable Job. It's a common book out there. In fact, I think they changed their name once if people are searching for that book, but it's by Luciani. But anyway,
Luciani. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That book. It talks about people need purpose. It's, there's 3 things. And one of the signs of a miserable job is your work has no purpose. And I think our people feel great purpose in what they do. And they know that they're preventing, catastrophic events.
Well, thanks very much, Tal. So the essential dynamics model that we use has 3 elements. Purpose is one of them. And the other 2 are people and path. And path is all of the things that people have to do to accomplish a purpose. And in our next meeting, I want to talk about the path a little bit, about Acuren's path. I think that'll be fun.
Sure.
But I really appreciate you coming on today and setting this up because this is a billion-dollar corporation that exists to protect all of us, and it's been run. Its growth has largely been driven by, well, let's say, management excellence, which is something that I'm fascinated with. So I'd like to thank you for sharing your time and set it up for another conversation in a couple of weeks, if that's okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Look forward to it.
Okay, thanks very much. Bryn Griffiths, thanks for your work recording us and helping us sound good. Tal Pizzey is CEO of Acuren, and I'm Derek with Unconstrained. And until next time, consider your quest.